So the question was vinyl versus fiberglass, colors on the exterior and on the interior. Very good question. The answer is no, pretty much the same. You're going to have the same amount of colors, probably 3. Yes? Question is how much difference? That's why I put dollar signs up there, because it's difficult to give you a cost. So I'm just trying to give you a representation of the hierarchy of cost. Okay, so I can't really give you a number or a percentage.
What are other negative points?
I'm sorry?
What is other negative aspects of wine?
Yes. Well, you're limited in colors. It's not as strong and as stable a material. Okay. Those are the main reasons. Probably a couple of more, but those are the main ones, and I want to stick to the main parts of the seminar. Okay. All right, great. So let's move along. So I talked about different parts of the window. Very important. If you learn nothing else today, I want you to understand this because it's very important, okay? You're going to talk about sash and frame and jambs and mullions and muttons, and I want to explain all that because window people get into jargon and you don't know what they're talking about. I find myself doing it as well. So let's start with the 3 basic parts of the window. First one is the frame. I'm going to walk around the table here so I don't walk in front of the screen. I don't know if you can see the red dotted line here, but behind the casing that you're looking at here is the frame of the window. I've outlined it here. That would be the sash, that would be the frame. Here it is right here. And the sash sits inside the frame. You don't need to write this down, but if you do hear the terms jamb, anybody know what a jamb is? Okay. A jamb is essentially a part of the window frame. You have side jambs that you're looking at here, a head jamb, and then a sill. Okay? Jamb, J-A-M-B, not toasted jam. So don't get thrown by that, because sometimes people will use that terminology when you're talking about windows, and they'll talk about the depth of jambs. Don't get confused by that. It's just a part of the frame. Okay. So let's move on now to the sash. Whether it's a window or a door, the sash is the part of the window or door that moves. It doesn't matter which direction it moves, whether it swings out, whether it slides, whether it goes up or down. The moving part in the window is called a sash. Now, somebody should have told me that when I was a young kid, because when I listened to the Christmas story about Santa going through the window and throwing up the sash, I'm like, what did he throw out? The trash? Right? I didn't know what a sash was. So sash is the moving part. Frame is the sometimes called main frame is the other part of the window. Okay. So you're clear on that, right? We'll talk about glass and grills, sometimes referred to as muntins, M-U-N-T-I-N-S. You can call them grills. Some people call them muttons. It's not a mutton, that's a lamb or sheep, isn't it? And I know it's some animal. So we'll come back to that. Okay. Yes? Yes. The question was, the sill is the bottom part of the frame that the sash comes down and sits against to seal. Yes. Okay. Great. So we're going to talk about insulated glass and glass technology. So what are those 2 things? Ever heard insulated glass? Right? Do we know what that is? No. Not uncommon, though, not understand that. So we're going to talk about it. By the way, in my slide up here, you see glass and glazed. don't get confused by that. Glass and glazing is basically the same thing. If you hear me talk about dual glazed, it simply means 2 panes of glass. Glass and glazing are synonymous. So let's talk about insulated glass. Anybody have storm windows on their home? Okay. It's likely you have a single pane of glass. So let me show you that. So up on our slide right now, you see a corner section of the glass. I'm going to step in front of the screen here again. I don't know how well you can see this. I hope you can see it pretty well. So in insulated glass, there's not actually any insulation in the glass. What they're talking about when we use that term is we have more than one piece of glass. So here we have 2 pieces of glass separated by an air space. We'll talk about that in a second. We have a spacer bar down at the bottom, so it goes all the way around the window, the glass part of the window, and then desiccant, which takes out the moisture. Okay, so a couple of things we need to know about insulated glass. Insulated glass is a good thing. Okay, you're probably not going to buy a window today that has a single pane of glass. No self-respecting contractor is going to sell that to you. Everybody wants insulated glass. Now, what level of insulated glass you get is dependent on how much you spend. But for this presentation, I just want you to know, single pane of glass is not good. Dual glazed, so 2 pieces of glass with a space in between, good. Triple glazed, so you'd have actually another pane of glass back here and another air space, and it's just another opportunity to keep air and cold out of the house. How does that happen? Is there something in between the glass? We'll talk about that in a second, but you familiar with bad insulation, fiberglass insulation, the pink stuff? Yeah. The fiberglass itself is not what insulates your home. It's the air trap between the fiberglass fibers. It's just like your coat. This gentleman a young fella has probably a down jacket on. It's actually the air trapped in the down fibers that keep it. Okay. And down at the bottom you see dual glaze and a piece of triple glaze. So you can see what that looks like. Make sense? Okay. Let's talk glass technology. Now, this can get very technical, and I'm going to make it very non-technical. Essentially, there's 2 types of technologies that you can apply to glass in windows that will help you with energy efficiency and thermal performance. The first one is low-E coating. Low-E stands for low emissivity. I'm not going to go into the technical part, but basically it is a metal oxide coating that is invisible on one of the panes of glass. And what that does is it serves to allow the visible light from the sun's rays to come into the house and reflect the infrared and the heat rays out of the house. Okay? And it's kind of, to tell you the truth, I don't want to get into the technical part of it because it's almost like NASA built this stuff. I mean, the glass knows, depending on the height of the sun, when it's going to let rays in and when it's not. Most of the windows sold today are going to have a low-E coating. If you're asked about low-E, do you want that? The answer is yes, you do. And again, any window salesperson worth his salt is going to tell you should have low-E. Doesn't matter soft coat, hard coat. Don't get hung up in that. You just want to make sure you get that low-E coating. The other one is argon gas. Now some windows are using krypton gas. I joke about it and say it's the stuff that killed Superman. Essentially, this is a different technology happening. One is reflecting the sun's rays. The other, the gas in between the cavity. Now it looks like a bunch of marbles there. It's actually, those are supposed to be molecules, okay? So you can't see the gas. It doesn't look any different than oxygen we breathe. And the way it works is The gas, argon gas, is more dense. It's an inert gas. Basically, if you were thinking about cold coming through your windows, if there were a gas in between the glass that was more dense, would it take longer for the heat or the cold to get from the outside to the inside? Yes. It's not very expensive. The company I work for and many others, window manufacturer I work for, includes low-E and argon gas together in a package. So when you're going to put new windows in, all you really need to know, low-E, argon, yes, good. Okay? Don't try to understand it, just say yes. Okay. We've got about 15 minutes to go. I'm going to tell you this is a very important part of the presentation, and if you don't understand